Hello everyone. Our project focuses on Oxford Street for assignment 2, urbanization from another point of view. We are group 2 consisting of Lakshay, Sajeev, Sakshi, Sudarshan and Vidhu. As a group, we acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Euro nation, the traditional custodians of the land on which Oxford Street stands. We pay our deepest respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and honor their ongoing connection to this land.
In street and country systems of life. The key component crucial for the city life are brought to light. Recreation promoting exercise and recreational areas for leisure activities, navigation ensuring transportation and mobility throughout areas, healthcare and wellness emphasizing the availability of health services, environmental sustainability practices, and green areas to counter urban growth. Public areas serving as hubs for socializing and community involvement. These systems work together to create a vibrant and welcoming setting that promotes a wholesome living environment for the city dwellers. Street and urbanization systems of function dwells into the three crucial aspects vital for city growth: living patterns, mobility, and infrastructure. Living pattern encompasses how living areas and housing design impact city life by providing housing options and fostering community growth. Transportation focuses on the modes of transportation such as road and public transit system that enables movement within area. Infrastructure pertain to the structure like bridges and utilities that sustain urban living condition in cities everywhere. These systems work together to keep everything running smoothly, even though they often operate separately from our experience.
Oxford Street lies in the eastern part of the City of Sydney local government area and serves as a key transport route connecting Sydney CBD with the eastern suburbs. It links Hyde Park to Victoria Barracks, Bondi Junction, and stretches all the way to Southend. Running in straight lines, Oxford Street cuts through Gadigal country, an area that originally extended from the eastern shores of Darling Harbour along the southern foreshore of Sydney Harbour, encircling much of Sydney's eastern suburbs. The accompanying map highlights significant locations within Gadigal country, such as Southend, Sydney Cove, and Darling Harbour, demonstrating the rich Aboriginal heritage and the connections across this landscape. Our archival research on Oxford Street reveals its unique position, perched on a ridgeline that historically divided the land around Sydney Harbour to the sandhills in the north and swamps to the south. This natural formation shaped the development of suburbs like Darlinghurst, Paddington, and Surrey Hills. The archival maps and images from the early 1800s illustrate these connections, showcasing the evolving relationship between natural landscapes and urban growth that helped define Oxford Street's historical significance. Archival research indicates that Oxford Street is likely aligned with an ancient pathway utilized by the Gadigal people and other Aboriginal communities of Sydney for movement between the lands surrounding the harbour and those to the east and south towards Kame, which is Botany Bay. Historical documents such as Plan de Villa de Sydney from August 1802, created by M. Lesueur, and the map of Port Jackson from 1857 illustrate the early colonial settlement at Sydney Cove, established on April 16, 1788. These maps underscore the enduring significance of these pathways and the deep connections between the land, the Aboriginal people, and the development of urban Sydney. Research also reveals that the first British colonists observed Aboriginal footways or maru, which crisscrossed the landscape. One of these pathways branched from the ridgeline of Oxford Street near the site of what is now the Darlinghurst Gaol and extended through the area now known as Darlinghurst and King's Cross, down towards Rushcutters Bay. The historical maps, such as the Plan of the Town and Suburbs of Sydney from 1822 and the Map of the City of Sydney from 1845, illustrate the early colonial urban form and its development, overlaying Aboriginal pathways that were integral to the area's movement patterns long before colonization. Research shows that the historical maps, such as Hulute and Clark's map from 1854 and other from The Stranger's Guide to Sydney in 1861, depict how Oxford Street's urban morphology developed along this ancient pathway. Photographs from the late 19th and early 20th centuries like the intersection of Crown Street and Oxford Street in 1900, further illustrates the evolving streetscape, while an aerial view from 1937 shows Hyde Park South and broader urban context of the street. Research reveals that upper level lots on the north side of Oxford Street offer stunning views of Sydney Harbour as Darlinghurst slopes down towards the water. This precinct features numerous heritage listed and contributory buildings from the 19th century and the Federation period, reflecting its rich architecture history. Notable historical images include a bird's eye view from the port of Sydney from 1913 and maps detailing Sydney's existing and future railways from September 1926. Additionally, photographs from 1871 showcase Victoria Barracks on Oxford Street and the Sudan contingent leaving the barracks in 1885, highlighting the area's historical significance and its role in shaping the urban landscape.
The Time Life of Cultural History showcases events in the history of Sydney revolving around Oxford Street area. In 1978, the inaugural Mardi Gras March led to a clash with the police and subsequent arrests that became a moment for the community members. Within the year, on June 24th, the official gay and lesbian Mardi Gras occurred, which led to increased enforcement action by authorities. As the 1980s dawned, the Mardi Gras parade evolved into a celebration drawing audiences after being rescheduled to autumn. In 1983, at Paddington Town Hall, there were gatherings for the LGBTQ community that focused on topics like HIV, AIDS, discussions which played a part in advancing the community's fight for right and recognition.
The Oxford Street surrounding area evolved from indigenous Gallical lands with natural bushland and communal spaces to a modern urban environment. In 21st century, Oxford Street open spaces have been further developed through urban renewal initiatives aimed at creating more inclusive and sustainable environments. Pop-up parks, expanded footpaths, reflecting a shift towards adaptable and flexible use of space. The number two in the map, which is marked, is the army ground, which is being carried out from the older generation. And we could also see the Sydney's cricket ground, which has been evolved beautifully over the years. And even the trace of Centennial Parks was found, and a 1918 image showing Centennial Park from the Oxford Street. Similarly, expanded footpaths are now made way for the pedestrian friendly street, which can now have open seating and outdoor seatings for cafeterias. For the built forms, we have focused on several parts throughout the Oxford Street. Uh, Always the retail industry sector plays an important role in the development of Oxford Street. The 1930 image shows the expanded street with trams in use. The second image of 1958 shows the shop front at the Taylor Square, which are mostly 2 stories or maximum 3 stories. The A part shows the current street of the Oxford Street, and the B part shows the less widened Oxford Street, which leads us towards the Bondi Junction. The C part shows the current street view of the Oxford Street in the Bondi Junction, which has a mix of old heritage buildings and new modern buildings. And the third image shows the current state of the Birdington Hotel, and the other image shows the same place where the Flangan Hotel was there in the year 1880. The Oxford Street's development was based on the criminal courthouse. The area started to develop surrounding the courthouse from the beginning. In a survey map of 1845, it is clear that the lot size are much bigger in size when compared with today's situation. In 1854, it is visible that there are some decrease in the lot size, and this brings in the birth of large number of retail industries to the Oxford Street. In 1903, all the shops have common walls attached to each other, closely packed, and the Oxford Street was marching towards its next major update. By 1910, the street width was increased in the Oxford Street to accommodate different modes of transportation such as motor vehicles, trams, etc. In the 1949 map, we could see a much defined lot sizes and increased road width size. Now, the current map of the Oxford Street shows that the street is now focusing on the pedestrian friendly environment and no more trams in the street, which was stopped by the year 1961. Now the street consists of maximum number of mixed-use building due to the urban development, which combines residential, retail, and other cultural spaces. And these are some of the older images of the Oxford Street showing its change through the years.
Oxford Street is a striking blend of historical and modern architecture, and this is vividly showcased in the built infrastructure as well. The image displayed shows some of the heritage listed buildings within the street, with their preserved Victorian facades still intact. These buildings serve as a reminder of Sydney's architectural history while also housing contemporary businesses and residences as well. One can see how these iconic structures add to the street's cultural vibrancy, drawing both local and visitors into its historical appeal. Now, moving on to building typologies, we can see examples of the upper level setbacks used in new developments along Oxford Street. The setbacks allow for modern additions to be made to the heritage buildings, but without disturbing the architectural balances of the street. As shown here, the modern structures are set back from the original roof lines, allowing the historical facades to remain the focal point. This architectural technique ensures that the character of Oxford Street is still preserved while accommodating modern uses such as offices and apartments as well. Moving on to public open spaces, the focus here is on the Centennial Park, a vital public open space near Oxford Street. One can see the wide green expanses that provide a stark contrast to the dense urban environment surrounding Oxford Street. This park serves as an essential space for recreation, events, and relaxation. The park's Master Plan 2040 aims to improve access and enhance the amenities available to the public, making it an even more attractive destination for Sydney's residents. It's a key ecological space that contributes significantly to the overall urban balance of the area. Now, moving on to the other open spaces present on Oxford Street. These showcases some of the small yet important open spaces along Oxford Street. These spaces are often nestled between buildings or in courtyards, providing a break from the busy commercial atmosphere of the street. The green areas and plazas shown here offer a space for pedestrians to sit, relax, or engage socially, adding to the street's overall livability. Future urban planning initiatives aim to expand these open spaces and integrating more greenery into the urban environment and enhancing the overall quality of life in this bustling area.
Oxford Street is known for its rich history and evolving role as a cultural and commercial hub in Sydney. The following map highlights the landmarks along the Oxford Street. Significant landmarks like Hyde Park, Paddington Town Hall, and Australian Museum reflects the cultural heritage in Sydney. These landmarks not only shape the urban fabric, but they influence the social and cultural activities along the Oxford Street that makes it an important historical axis. In contrast to these landmarks, other landmarks like Bondi Westfield shows the evolution of the street with the changes in land use and commercial activities, while the spaces like Taylor Square remains the focal point, particularly in their ties to the Sydney's LGBTQ plus history.
The floral section exhibits a range of plant varieties discovered along Oxford Street in Sydney that highlights the array of greenery in the cityscape. These consist of the foreign plants like scaevola and cyclamens that introduce hues to the streets. Notable trees such as the Moreton, bay fig, and jacaranda provide shade, enhance the beauty of communal areas, while robust shrubs like Vestringia fructose and Ninina domestica flourished in the city setting. The Washington palm and the Canary Islanded palm give off a vibe in the area. Banksia and Grevillea showcase Australia's nature that and enhance the city's distinct scenery.
Oxford Street demonstrates the diversity of engagement in public and private spaces. Along certain stretches of Oxford Street, the larger open storefronts are designed to draw pedestrians in, facilitating a vibrant street life. However, in other areas, more traditional closed facades present a clear demarcation between public and private spaces, limiting visual permeability and reducing interaction with passerby. The section captures the variation in access and engagement. The wider footpaths adjacent to open fronted shops support increased pedestrian activity, creating more dynamic public space. Conversely, where facades are more closed, the street's atmosphere shifts towards more contained, less interactive environment. Square operates as a vital junction along Oxford Street where the transition between public and private spaces is highly visible. The square is characterized by a fluid exchange between open plazas and adjacent commercial buildings, fostering continuous interaction between the built environment and the public. During our visit, we observed notable differences in how public interfaces with private properties along Oxford Street. The other properties maintain a rigid separation with closed facades, smaller entrances that limits the public engagement. These interfaces create barriers, reducing sense of permeability between public and private space. Some shops, especially near the Taylor Square, features expansive open frontages and plazas that are currently used for the Mardi Gras parade.
The constraints impacting Oxford Street are defined by our site observations and further study. Balancing heritage with modern development. There is a significant challenge in modernizing the area while ensuring the protection of its cultural and historical significance. Topographical restrictions. The natural terrain poses limitations on the types of urban developments or redesigns that can be undertaken. Managing traffic flow. As a key transport corridor, any changes to the area must not intensify existing traffic conditions. Heritage regulations. Development projects must comply with laws that safeguard historical sites and cultural heritage. Limited development. Competing demands for retail, public spaces, and transport infrastructure create constraints within this confined area. These factors must be carefully considered to create a balanced approach to urban development on Oxford Street. The observations from our site study have highlighted several key opportunities for Oxford Street. First, cultural integration is essential. We can incorporate Aboriginal history through interpretive markers, artworks, and landscape designs that honor the site's rich heritage. Next, by creating green spaces, we can improve ecological corridors along the street's natural ridgeline, promoting biodiversity and sustainability. Pedestrian friendly design is also vital. We should prioritize walkability by designing streetscapes that cater to foot traffic, reflecting the street's original use. Additionally, we can enrich the area through public art and cultural storytelling, using installations and signage to convey the significance of Aboriginal pathways and history. Finally, we must focus on resilient infrastructure, implementing climate resilient designs to address challenges like flooding and heat. By capitalizing on these opportunities, we can create a more vibrant, sustainable, and inclusive urban environment on Oxford Street. In conclusion, the design and form of Oxford Street should honor its origins as an Aboriginal pathway while effectively addressing the needs of a contemporary urban environment. A design that respects heritage while enhancing functionality will foster sustainability, cultural recognition, and improved urban spaces. Cultural preservation, cohesive urban form, sustainability in design, and enhanced public spaces. These outcomes will contribute to a vibrant, inclusive, and sustainable Oxford Street that celebrates its rich heritage and meets the demands of modern urban living. These are the references. Thank you.